Perfect. Once again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. My name is Bernie Traversari, and I'm the Managing Director of the Society for Conservation Biology in North America. I am really glad to be welcoming everyone to the second session in SCBNA's public engagement series with the Nature Record. The first thing I'd like to do at the start of all of our webinars is briefly introduce SCBNA for those of you that are not familiar with our organization. Phil, if you mind going to the next slide. Thanks so much. So for those of you unfamiliar with SCBNA, we are a professional society dedicated to advancing the science and practice of conserving Earth's biological diversity. And we do this essentially by supporting everyone and anyone engaged in conservation across North America. We do that through a variety of different means, including professional development opportunities, research and publications, and our biannual conference, the next iteration of which will take place this coming July. But we also support conservation practitioners through collaborations like this one with the Nature Record and with others engaging in interesting and important work across our region. Okay, you can go to the next slide, Phil. Perfect. So our collaboration with the Nature Record is really meant to support the work of this national initiative, which seeks to bring together knowledge, storytelling, and public participation to elevate the role of nature in the US. Over the course of the next few months, SCBNA will be hosting a series of feedback sessions whereby attendees will be able to learn more about the assessment and provide feedback in order to shape the ultimate version of the assessment. I won't go into too much detail about what will be a part of the assessment. I will leave that to Phil. But the only thing I want to mention is that we're really excited to be a part of this, and we are really grateful for the opportunity to support this important work. Okay. You want to go to the next one, Phil? Okay. The last thing that I want to go over before I pass on the mic to the Nature Record folks is a couple of brief housekeeping items for today's session. So the first thing that I want to note, Phil, if you want to click on first animation, perfect, is that we will be recording today's session. However, we won't be able to provide closed captions in the recording. As a result, I encourage everyone who wants to have closed captions to click on the live transcript or closed captions button under screen at this time in order to have those available to you all throughout today's presentation. In addition to that, I want to remind everyone that the chat will be available throughout the entirety of today's session, including during our Q&A period at the end. Please feel free to use it throughout. We will be monitoring the chat to answer questions and provide additional information as needed. Okay. And then I think we have one more. And then lastly, I also want to remind everyone that you have access to the reactions button at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to use it as well if you want to react to any specific bit of information that we share throughout today's session, or you can also use it once we get to the Q&A portion of the session as well. Okay. Oh, I think one more. Perfect. So that's it for me. Once again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone in the Nature Record for allowing SCBNA to collaborate with you on this initiative.
Thank you, Bernie. Hi, everybody. My name is Jane Lubchenko. I'm really excited to see you all with us today. This webinar, thanks to our good colleagues at SCB North America, is designed to give you a sense of what the Nature Record is all about and how you can become involved. We need you. The Nature Record is, I'm going to say a few general things about what it is and then pass it over to the director, Phil, who will give you some more specific content. We've seen how very powerful scientific and knowledge assessments like the National Climate Assessment have been in the country in giving people an understanding, a common understanding grounded in science of what's happening, why it's important, and what options exist. We've never had something like that for nature in the United States. And yet nature is changing rapidly And those changes have very important consequences for people. It was pretty clear from my time in the White House from 21 to 25 that even within the federal agencies, there was not a common understanding of what was happening with respect to nature in the US. The same thing is true across the country, whether it's private sectors or communities, whether it is state and local government folks or others who might want to know about nature. There's not a common understanding, there's not a shared understanding that's grounded in science. And so we need something like this. The US has never had it. And the nature record is the opportunity to obtain that common understanding grounded in published science, accepted knowledge to help us move forward. The next slide, please, Phil. The nature record is designed to do exactly that. And it consists of two primary components. One, this assessment of knowledge that I just spoke of. And secondly, a series of companion products that are designed explicitly to help make the content of the knowledge assessment more accessible and relevant and usable to a variety of different audiences. So the knowledge assessment itself will assess the status and trends and future options for US lands, waters, wildlife, and ecosystems. What's happening? Why are they changing? And equally importantly, it will assess why it matters. Not just what the changes are in species and ecosystems, but what are the changes in the benefits that they provide and how that matters to our economy, to environmental justice, to national security, to human health, to climate solutions, to culture. And finally, it will help us understand what the options are moving forward. So that's what the assessment will do. And then the companion products will amplify and make more accessible and usable the information that is in the knowledge record. So these two components constitute the nature record. Next slide, please. This effort began as a federal effort in actually 2021. It was formally embraced by the federal agencies in 2022. And it was at the time called the National Nature Assessment. It has evolved through time. It was canceled by the new administration that came on board. And it has become an independent effort, which is what it is today, with its own structure and function, and a new name, the Nature Record. So that's where we are today. Our timeline on the assessment and the companion products is what you see on this slide here, with the assessment, the third draft of the assessment will be out for public comment and formal review by the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. That's going to happen very soon. And so this webinar is particularly timely because knowing what this is and that there is an opportunity to help shape it by commenting on the draft is critically important. And so your spreading the word and your providing public comment and helping others to do so is critically important. This peer review period and public comment period will be March, April, and May. So end of May is the end of the public comment period. The draft then will be revised, taking into account both the formal peer review from the National Academies and this public comment period, with an online release of the final report due in the fall of this year. Following that, there will be a print version, an actual book that will be released sometime following that. quite a few months after that, so that there's time for printing and all that. So that's the assessment itself. You'll recall that I said there are two components. So the companion products are a variety of products that are being done with various partners, and those will be rolled out. Some are already out now, others will be rolled out sort of on a continuing basis, depending on whether they connect with the themes of the assessment or whether they are amplifying the key messages of the assessment. Next slide. So the nature record has a formal governance structure, and at the center of this are the authors, and led by the director, Phil Levin. Phil is working with a team of over 170 authors, very, very talented people who know their stuff and who are experts in a variety of different relevant fields. Those authors and the team that Phil is working with are really at the core of this. We have a fiscal sponsor so that there is a legal entity and we're able to receive public funds, private funds into this Resources Legacy Fund. And the governing body for this whole effort is the Secretariat, 7 individuals. They have the decision-making power to say, yes, this is final, it's ready to go, that sort of thing. And between the meetings of the Secretariat, the Executive Committee can make decisions. The authors themselves are the lead authors for each chapter, constitute a council that work closely with Phil to help keep all the pieces connected and make sure that all the different chapters are connected to each other. We also have an advisory board of about 25 individuals that are helping us think through very strategically what the opportunities are for amplifying the content of the assessment and developing products that will really be useful to a wide variety of audiences. Those partners are key to this effort, and we'll say a little bit more about those. The next slide gives you a sense of who some of these people are. You see on the Secretariat individuals that are deep content experts across a variety of fields that are relevant. Amy Ando is an economist. Her specialty is ag economics at Ohio State. Bilal Ayub is an engineer at University of Maryland. I serve on this. Simon Levin, an ecologist at Princeton. Alani Wilhelm, native Hawaiian, who is a leader in indigenous knowledge and is CEO of an international organization, Nia Taro. Heather Tallis chairs the Secretariat. She was the originator. She and I started the National Nature Assessment when we were at OSTP together, Office of Science and Technology Policy, and then brought and hired Phil to direct it. But Heather was the initial director until we had Phil on board. Jonathan Patz, health and environment expert at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. And we have 2 people that serve ex officio. One is Michael Scott, who is with RLF, and then Phil is also ex officio as director. The team is ably led by Phil and our wonderful deputy director, Tessa Francis. And staff, we have both Leslie Nguyen, Courtney DeLoach Hill, and Athena Bertolino, who are just amazing, wonderful people. Most of whom have, or at least Courtney and Leslie, were with us from almost the beginning. So they've seen the transition of this effort and have provided continuity and really phenomenal support. We also have a board of advisors that I mentioned earlier. And we're going to be rolling out the names of those individuals very shortly. So stay tuned on that front. Next slide. That gives you a sense of sort of what it is, what it's all about, but it couldn't happen without funders. And we have been extraordinarily fortunate to have the support of the funders that you see here on this slide. They've been wonderful to work with and really understanding how incredibly important it is that we elevate nature on the radar screen of everyone. As one of our funders said yesterday, we believe that it's time to turn the dial up on nature, turn it up all the way. So that's what it is that we are doing, turning the dial up on nature, but grounding it in knowledge that will help people make informed and smart decisions. So with that, I will turn it over to Phil, next slide, to give you some more information. Phil, over to you.
Thank you, Jane, and thank you for everything you've been doing to support our effort from before the beginning. And thank you also to Bernie for making this happen, and for Athena for really all her work on behalf of this. And Tessa and Leslie are here today as well, so it's really wonderful. And Courtney's on a well-deserved vacation, so it's really great to have the staff here. And also thank you all for being here. It's pretty amazing to see some familiar names out there in the list of participants, as well as names I recognize from social media who I've never met. So that's kind of fun. So welcome. And thank you again for spending your time with us. My job today is to really give you some of the nuts and bolts, the what is this assessment and how we're building it. This is really kind of the Nature Record 101, and I hope you'll join us in the coming months as we dive deep into the content of each of the chapters as the webinar series continues. So as Jane mentioned, our work is definitely rooted in science and other forms of knowledge. It's deeply guided by communities and has been from the beginning, and really enriched by public participation and by your participation. So thank you again for being here. Everything we're doing is really meant to help people who want to make decisions or otherwise act on knowledge. So that's our mission. Okay. A lot of what we're doing, as I said, is not just science, but we really embrace the idea of multiple ways of knowing. We recognize that Indigenous knowledge is an important body of knowledge, and that it's really essential for understanding the natural world and for contributing to scientific, social, and economic advancements. And everything we're doing is grounded in the CEQ and White House OSTP federal guidance on Indigenous knowledge, which when I looked a couple days ago was still available online, and that QR code would take you there if you're interested. It's really a groundbreaking document. And again, we really embrace the idea that we need to be useful. We are inspired, literally inspired by users of the information. We began this journey with a federal request for information, which yielded 3,000 comments in the Federal Register back when we were the National Nature Assessment. We have engaged in a number of formal tribal consultations, multiple Native Hawaiian engagements, and then just in the scoping process, we conducted 75 more than 75 public events where we engaged thousands of people and representatives from more than 250 different organizations across 45 states. So it was really extensive and really fun and really informative. And what we did was take all that information, and it eventually landed into 3 guiding questions that really focused our work and is meant to make it as useful as possible to as many people as possible. And the first question is really what's happening. So what's happening out in the world to nature? What are the status trends and future projections of marine ecosystems, freshwater ecosystems, terrestrial ecosystems. What are the status and trends of drivers of change that's impacting those ecosystems? And how has our relationship, human relationships and connections to nature changed over time? So that's really the first question. The second is, why does this matter? So why do these changes matter? How do they impact climate mitigation and adaptation? How do changes in nature affect our cultural heritage? How do changes in nature impact jobs and livelihoods and other aspects of the economy? Do changes in nature affect our mental health, our physical health, community health, and overall well-being? And how do changes in nature impact risk and resilience to environmental hazards or even national security? And then the third question is, and so what are we going to do about it? What are the options? So when things aren't where we'd like them to be, what are opportunities for us? And we look at this in two ways. First, what are some lessons learned from success stories around the country? Where are there bright spots that can be leveraged and expanded across the country? And what are the lessons learned from all those bright spots? Second is, where are there opportunities for new or improved policy and practices as we look forward? And this is all framed in the context of best practices around scientific assessment. It's centered around equity and environmental justice and incorporates everything through the lens of climate change because we have to. This all kind of lands in a table of contents, which is shown here. There's really 15 chapters that cover all the topics that I just said. We open up with an introduction that has an overview, an equity, environmental justice section, and a focus on what are frameworks and approaches to assessing nature. And then we start with bright spots because there are many and they're exciting. And then we move to all the status and trends information and then benefits to people and end with opportunities for nature. As Jane said, the planned publication of the assessment will be online this coming fall, and there'll be a book version published by MIT Press, I hope by the summer of 2027. However fast they can take our manuscript and turn it into like a book. They got things to do. I don't understand it all, but it takes months. And just a little bit about how we do the work. We have a writing team for each of those chapters. The authors, the lead authors were selected from a national call for authors that we conducted in the fall of 2024. And those chapter leads then selected their author teams. And as Jane said, we have a total of 171 authors right now. And we're really well supported by a technical support unit, which operates out of NC State University. It's the same group that supported the National Climate Assessment for a number of years now. And these are an awesome team that provides scientific editing, copying editing. They help us with figures, and they really are in there for quality control and coordinating across lots and lots of materials. So they're really essential to what we're doing. And I want to take a second and just say, like, okay, so that's kind of a big picture. I'm not going to dive into the details of each of the chapters now. That's coming in future weeks. What I want to do now is just sort of give you some of the skeleton of the assessment. So each chapter will include key messages, and these are high-level statements that highlight a main finding. All the key messages include assessments of uncertainty. The key messages are supported by text, which is the state of knowledge text. These provide evidence and research highlights and lots of references to support that. Chapters will also include a background, so you have appropriate context. There's equity, environmental justice highlights in each of the chapters, and they'll also point to emerging issues. And just some examples of the sort of questions that are being addressed by the chapters. I'm going to show you three examples that are just different flavors of chapters so you get a sense of the sort of topics that will be addressed by the assessment. The first example here is the marine ecosystem chapter, and they're asking how U.S. marine systems are changing across regions and scales. What are the dominant stressors shaping oceans and coasts, and how do ecological changes intersect with fisheries, communities, and economies? So those are their three, I think, major themes that I'm seeing in that chapter, and there's similar themes that come up for the freshwater and terrestrial chapters as well. Another flavor chapter is one focused on human connection with nature. In this chapter, the three things I see popping up are how do people relate to nature through work, culture, recreation, and care? And how do these relationships shape values, decisions, and stewardship? And how do connections to nature differ across communities and landscapes? And then finally, another example is the nature and economy chapter. And here they're asking, how does nature support economic activity across sectors? And I just did something weird here. What economic risks emerge as ecosystems change, and where are dependencies on nature poorly recognized or undervalued? All of our work will be reviewed by the National Academies of Science, as Jane said, and that's actually coming up in about a month. So we're busy going crazy trying to get all the chapters in shape to send to review. Our audience includes policymakers, environmental policymakers, yes, but as Jane alluded to, really all policymakers we feel could benefit from this information. Conservation practitioners and land managers, advocates and NGOs, business leaders, philanthropy, educators, K through 12, college, journalists, students, and really anybody who wants to engage with nature society issues. We've had the opportunity to rethink how an assessment such as this could have impact in our on policy and in civil society. So I'll highlight some of our current thinking here, and this is really evolving too as we progress. We see a lot of opportunities working with partners to influence and inform lots of on-the-ground management activities, as well as help support and inform policymaking at the state level. We're also partnering with the Association of Science and Technology Centers to develop pop-up exhibits and programming that we hope will be in many science museums across the country. We have some interesting discussions going on with folks from the Nature and Health Alliance about opportunities to have these sorts of displays and interactive pop-up exhibits in hospital waiting rooms where there's a real opportunity as people wait for their loved ones for whatever reason to engage nature and health information, for example. And we're really excited about some of the work that we've been doing with some artists. We have a youth arts contest that is just wrapping up. I'm really, I can't wait to show everybody the winners of this contest. This was conducted in partnership with the Bowseat Creative Action for Conservation group, bowseat.org. You should check them out. They're awesome. They had 6,500 submissions, and we whittled it down to just like 20 or so winners that are associated with various chapters. So it's really, really cool. We also worked with an organization called Poets for Science, and we have a poetry anthology that's a companion to our assessment that was published last September. And in both of these cases, what's really exciting to me is that the prompts to the artists were very similar to the prompts that went out to the scientists. So these are artists responding to the same questions that the scientists are responding to, and obviously in a very different way. What I'd like to do now is stop talking and turn it over to Tessa Francis, our amazing Deputy Director, to talk a little bit about the timeline and some other things that are happening.
Thank you, Phil. Hi, everybody. I am Tessa Francis, and I just want to first of all add my thanks to Jane's and Phil's, to all of you for being here and for leaning into the nature record. I've been checking out the participant list. It's really gratifying to see familiar names and faces, and also a lot of new names and faces as well. So we're so excited you're here. Thank you for taking time out of your busy life to listen to what we have going on. So I'm going to bring us back to sort of where we are now and what happens next, and importantly, how you can get involved and help shape the nature record assessment. So as Jane and Phil mentioned, and Jane showed us in this timeline, we're just moments away. It's really like a few weeks away from sending the draft report out for public comment and peer review. All our authors, the technical support unit, the staff are really hard at work finalizing these drafts so that we can share them with you. And following that peer review and public comment period, authors will then take all the comments they receive and go back to work and revise their chapters in response to this feedback, developing the final version that will be released later this year. And I want to just pause on that and really drive home the point that the authors will take your comments. Phil and Leslie and I and the rest of the staff will literally be taking your comments, compiling them and sharing them with the authors so that they can help revise their chapters. So your comments really, really matter. Okay, so what does that public comment period look like and how does it work? If you could go to the next slide, Phil. So you really have two primary pathways for engagement and for providing comments: oral comments and written comments. So in terms of the oral comments, beginning in March, SCB North America will be hosting the Nature Record again in a series of webinars that are focused on the chapters, where you can hear from the people actually doing the work, the authors, hosted by the chapter leads, one of whom is here today, Sharon Collins, the chapter lead for our terrestrial chapter, and joined by several of our authors as well from her chapter and other chapters. And our chapter leads will introduce their chapters to you and then engage in a dialogue with you, with the attendees, where you can ask your questions or you can share your thoughts on what you would like to see included in those chapters. Here's the webinar series schedule. Registration for each of those webinars will be on the SCB North America website. Some of they're open now, and Bernie will share that link again at the end today. We will also be going on a national tour. We'll be taking our show on the road and holding in-person public engagement events around the country. And we'd really love you to show up and say hi and meet you in person and hear your thoughts in person and engage in a face-to-face conversation. That schedule will be shared on our website, thenaturerecord.org, and you can follow us around the country, show up and attend one of those events. So that's how you can share your comments with your mouth. You can also share your comments in written form. So at the same time, and beginning March 1st and going through the end of May, you will have an opportunity to read the entire set of chapters in their draft form and submit written comments through the Nature Record website. You can do this as an individual. You can review chapters as a group or within your organization or institution and collect a compiled set of comments and submit those all through a nifty portal that will be open on the Nature Records website the 1st of March and stay open until the end of May. So if you want to stay tuned to hear all about the webinars and our tour dates and be alerted when that public comment portal goes live, go to thenaturerecord.org and sign up for our newsletter, which often contains bonus content such as poems written by Phil. So as you can see, we are just getting started. We're really just about halfway there. And it's a really, really important moment for you to get engaged, where we really want to hear from you, engage in this dialogue with us to help develop the nature record. We're really grateful that you're here. Your comments are super important to us. And we hope to hear a lot from you as we go through this journey together. So I think we get to use the rest of our hour now for a general Q&A session. So if you have a question or a comment, you can put it in the chat, and I'm going to pass the mic to Athena to shepherd us through this. Thanks.
Thanks, Tessa. Yeah, so due to the number of folks on the call today, we're not going to use the raise hand feature. So if you do have a question, please either you can send a message to everybody via the chat or myself directly. To answer one question that came in directly for anybody who joined late, yes, this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on SCBNA's YouTube page and can be shared broadly as you wish. And then the first question to kick off Q&A, great question from Blake Simmons here. Phil, I'll pass this one on to you. It's a question about the book and the assessment itself seems to be very broad and generalized at the national level. So how will the nature record be translating that information into local issues and potential solutions?
That is a great question. And it's a question that I think we've been struggling with and thinking about since day one. How do you make a national assessment relevant to people where they are, where they live, and where they work? And there's several ways that we've been thinking about this, and we're very open to suggestions. So if you think of something, feel free to reach out to us. There's also you can write us on the website too. And as Tessa said, we are the black box. So if you think you're running into the black box, we are the black box. Okay, so first, thinking about policy. So we've been developing a number of partnerships with NGOs who work on the ground in different places, including people like NWF, the National Caucus of Environmental Legislators, TNC, Audubon, and so on and so forth, Defenders of Wildlife. So we've been talking to lots of people and sort of building relationships and partnerships. Many of those organizations have people on the author team as well. So the trick is how do we take the information that we're developing and make it relevant? And that's going to take a lot of effort in a way that was different than if we were in the federal system, because each state has different issues and the timing of those issues bubbling up in different places varies. And so it really will require a 50-state strategy working with partners to develop products derivative from the assessment that will be relevant to whatever is happening in that state at that time. So the bottom line is, when it comes to management and policy, we will be working with agencies and NGOs to really develop bespoke products for as many places as we have capacity for. Because I think that's the only way to do it. In general, the other ways that will support that effort, but also extend it in various ways, will be through some other partnerships. I think I saw Josh on here and from NatureServe, and we've been talking with Esri, and are partnering with Esri quite a bit. And so our objective really is to create alongside the assessment, an interactive dynamic tool that allows you to zoom in as much as the data allows to look at issues that are relevant, that we're raising in the assessment, that are appropriate for your location and your neighborhood, your region of interest. So for instance, if in our health chapter, they're discussing about, urban green space, the importance of urban green space to anxiety disorders or depression, or overall mental health. You'll be able to look at green space in your city, in your neighborhood. You can look at historical issues around environmental justice, for example. How does green space line up with redlining? You could look at biodiversity issue with that, and to the extent that we can find it, mental health data as well. So whatever data that we can find that can populate this atlas, we will do, and that will form the basis of some of the policy and management type products that we've produced. It will also be used in some educational products, so that whether it's K through 12, also college curriculum, we'll be working with partners to use that atlas to create locally based, locally relevant educational products as well. That's probably a long enough answer, but I'm happy to follow up if I missed something.
Thanks, Phil. And you actually answered a follow-on question in that answer. So good job. Two
If
answers
I
in
just
one.
keep talking forever, I'm likely to answer someone's question.
Awesome. The next question, Jane, I might send this one to you. What is the status of funding, and is there still a need from philanthropy?
I just answered that in the chat.
Okay.
The answer is we are actively fundraising and would welcome suggestions for many of you about funders who might be interested in helping with this. So please feel free to contact Phil or me, and we can follow up and have a productive conversation. Thanks in advance for that.
Thank you. Next question, also one that showed up on our first iteration of this overview, and that is, how will the nature record interface with wildlife agencies?
I guess I can start that, and then, Tessa, maybe if you want to add in. I think this again is a very similar answer to the other one, where we have started talking to a number of state agencies, but I think even more important are our partners who have long lasting, long existing relationships with agencies. And so our hope is to work through these partners who have these trusted relationships to support on the ground state agency level management, whether it's the state wildlife action planning or other state level things. And I mean, the state wildlife action plans are, like, I think, an obvious place for us to connect. But I mean, I think the exciting thing about what we're doing is where it would interface with state agencies that we don't normally think about in this space. So again, I'll go back to the health chapter just because I used it before, but I think there's lots of opportunities to interface with state departments of health to talk about nature and health and opportunities there, or transportation, or other agencies at the state level, so that when we begin to do one action, whatever it is, it has multiple impacts, and we can engage more than just the Fish and Wildlife agencies or the Department of Ecology or whatever the state has. We can have, I think, a broader impact if we engage many agencies outside maybe our usual scope.
Great. Thank you. And then a very similar question to that, but a different audience. How's the nature record engaging or planning to engage the business community?
I bet Jane will have the best answer to that.
So the business community, industry, finance community are all really important partners in this endeavor. They are represented on the advisory board, and we are having active discussions with them about the kinds of complementary products that would be useful for those communities. the finance community, the business community. There are coalitions of companies that are very focused on nature already and are eager to partner with us to build on the knowledge base that we're going to be delivering. I think there's huge interest and appetite in doing this. And so this is a really exciting conversation that we have underway. We haven't identified specific companion products yet, but we are likely to have a number of engagement efforts that are focused on the private sector. I mean, the private sector, business community. And I'm happy to, I mean, if this is something that anyone is interested in, let us know and we can loop you into those conversations.
Thank you, and thanks. I know a couple of folks have put a couple of comments, not questions, into the chat. We love that also. So if you do have comments or feedback, feel free to use the chat for that as well. Folks really love this audience question. So pushing a little further on the private entities question, there is another follow-up question about engaging specifically logging and mining and other organizations, entities that essentially work on the land and how we're interfacing with them.
Yeah, I see that question and the one above it. I think I'll answer them together. The one above it says State Wildlife Agency continues to support trophy hunting, the mountain lions, no bag limit, etc. And I think those, in a way, they kind of, in my mind, I'll answer both with a little, well, whatever, with my answer. So the important thing about the work that we're doing is that we really work hard to be policy relevant, but not policy prescriptive. So what we mean by that is the science will allow us to make a number of if-then statements. In other words, if this happens, if this practice continues, or unless something changes, then the science says with a certain amount of certainty that there'll be some outcome. We don't then take that further and say, therefore, you should do this. What we're revealing is what the science says about the relationship between cause and effect, essentially. And so we won't advocate for changing a particular policy. We'll just highlight the consequences of that policy for ecosystems, for human well-being, for the economy, and so forth. And so because of that, it's really important for us to ask the right questions and develop the best science. And those questions come from stakeholder groups like logging interests, like farmers or commercial fisheries. And so initially, many of our engagement efforts were targeted directly towards sectoral-based conversations. So we had a meeting with ranchers, we had a meeting with big ag, we had meetings with commercial fisheries, we had meetings with outdoor recreation industry. So all these industries we tried to bring in, we're trying to understand what kind of information we most value to them and produce information that looks at the benefits, but also the cost of their activities. So that's kind of the space we operate in. So it's sort of a very traditional, I think, space for science to play. And then partners or others can use that information to support whatever position they feel like they would like to advocate for. But the important thing is that it's the best available science on those topics that are out there. So we want to provide that information to those who can use it in different contexts.
Great. I am seeing two more questions and I'm looking at the time and I know we want to leave 1 or 2 minutes at the end to close out. So if folks, any last call for questions coming in, we can probably fit one more in after the 2 that are here. Is your organization planning any international coalitions or any kind of international efforts with the work?
I'll start and then turn it over to Jane, I think. I'll just say that back when we were in the government, we were working closely with DOI effort, Department of Interior effort called the Biodiversity and Climate Change Assessment, which was all of North America. So it was Mexico, Canada, and the US. When we transitioned out of government, um, frankly, a lot of those things just like were we haven't been able through our limited capacity to maintain those. We've sort of rebuilt, but I think that's a really important opportunity, especially in North America, to continue those conversations. We've been involved in other fora as well. For example, IPBES and the Biodiversity COP. But largely our effort has been domestic. And then having said that, our scope is US and territories. So particularly when it comes to the ocean, when you start thinking about US territorial waters going out all the way into the Pacific and the Caribbean, it actually covers quite a bit of stuff. And you can't think about US oceans and nature without thinking about the entire globe and international. I'm sure Jane has more to say, or maybe not.
So there have long been international assessments of biodiversity, not long, but they've been out there, the IPBES effort that Phil noted. And a number of countries already do something comparable to the nature record. They do a national assessment of biodiversity. And so there already is a pretty vibrant international effort. The need that we saw for the nature record is very much focused on the US, and that is its primary lens. That said, many of the people involved in the nature record, both authors as well as advisors, as well as leadership, are all involved in a number of international efforts. And so once we have these core products, both the assessment and the companion products, there will be ample opportunity to connect those to larger efforts. I work closely with the Pontifical Academy of Sciences on these issues, with the Royal Society, with TWAS, with the GB Global Biodiversity Framework, with all, a whole acronym soup of international organizations. And so too do a lot of the other people involved in this. And so this effort is nationally focused, but will be internationally connected once we sort of have our act together and know what it is that we have. That's the opportunity, and that's the one that we're focused on right now. Phil, let me just address the One Health issue really quickly because we're running out of time. Yes, the One Health is in fact part of the health chapter. There is a focus on that. And it's a really interesting lens through which to see how connected human health is to all these other things. So yes, is the answer.
Let's see, 56. Let's ask the one last question, which also again came up in the first iteration of the overview, and that is if we're engaging with any groups that are doing data collection or monitoring on the ground with changes in nature, and if not, how folks could get engaged with that.
Can you repeat that, Athena?
Yeah. So it was a question of whether the nature record is engaging with groups that are collecting data to monitor changes on the ground. And if not, how that connection could be made.
Tessa, would you like to answer that? I think you gave a great answer to a similar question last time.
Yeah, so I think that our authors are out there scouring for all available information that they can use to inform their chapters. So if you are personally engaged with an effort, that's a monitoring effort with a rich data set, I would encourage you to share that information with us when the public comment period is open. If you see information gaps in the chapters that you know can be filled, because that's obviously a keen interest of across all the chapters, is to bring in the best information and data that we can to inform our key messages and our assessment. So yes, and if you see something missing and you want to add, then please do share because we want to know. Thanks.
With that, I think we will turn it over to Bernie to close out. Thank you again, everyone, on behalf of the Nature Record for your involvement today. And if you do think of any questions after the call, feel free to reach out.
Likewise, I just wanted to thank everyone again for being here today. Thank you to Phil, Tessa, Athena, and Jane for leading today's presentation and for answering questions. And just one more reminder that the registration links for our feedback sessions are already up and running on our website, so you can register now. And I also wanted to promote, Phil, you can go to the next slide. Our conference in this coming July 12th through 16. SCBNA will be co-hosting the North American Congress for Conservation and Restoration alongside the Society for Ecological Restoration and the Society for Ecological Restoration's Great Lakes Midwest chapter. We expect this to be a very interdisciplinary conference. We encourage everyone to join. And as a spoiler, we'll have folks from the Nature Record present during one of our plenaries, Phil included. So that's going to be pretty exciting. And all the information on the conference is available on our website as well. So thank you so much, everyone. And we'll hopefully see you at our next session.
And I'm
Thank you,
especially
everybody.
excited to see some names I recognize from our webinars last November. I'm so happy.